For the past 12 days, our doctors have been out on the streets demanding a systemic overhaul in the response to the brutal rape and murder of a 31-year-old doctor at the RG Kar Hospital in Kolkata. In return, they have been threatened with legal action, police arrests, even physical violence by state actors. It seems like the rest of us, the Supreme Court could take it no more, which is why the Chief Justice of India, along with two other senior judges on the bench, decided to take up this matter suo motu. The resulting observations and final order have left the West Bengal government red-faced and squirming for cover. First, before we tell you what exactly the Supreme Court said, let's get you the big takeaways. Number one, the Supreme Court has now established a national task force comprising prominent doctors and officials of the Health Ministry to address the safety concerns that have been raised by medical workers. This task force is required to submit an interim action plan within 3 weeks and a final report in 2 months. Number two, the CBI has been directed to provide a status report on the investigation into the horrific rape murder case. And number three, the Kolkata police has been directed to submit a report into the vandalism of the hospital. Both of them have been told to come to court by Thursday. Lastly, the court has made an earnest appeal to striking doctors, urging them to return to work with the assurance that their safety will be priority moving forward. But much like the Calcutta High Court last week, the Supreme Court's bark was as bad as its bite. The court made several pointed remarks, starting with the assertion that the nation cannot wait for another rape for things to change on the ground. It also criticized the West Bengal government's crackdown on protesters, saying that power should not be unleashed on protesters at a time of national catharsis, especially after the state had failed to maintain law and order to protect the crime scene. The court also, importantly, like all of us, questioned why the RGR Medical College principal attempted to pass the crime off as suicide, following which he was reappointed immediately despite ongoing scrutiny. The court, like most of us, was also flummoxed over the extraordinary delay by the hospital in filing an FIR. A body of your own student is found in campus in the seminar hall, ladies and gentlemen, at 9 a.m. and the college files an FIR only at 11:45 p.m. when the entire day and night have gone. Finally, the court expressed grave concern about the extremely concerning spread of the victim's name, photographs and videos in the media. Listen in to some of the key highlights coming from the in-camera judgment of the Supreme Court bench. The Supreme Court wanted all of you, wanted India to hear, more importantly, wanted the West Bengal government to hear what exactly they thought of what happened at the Kolkata hospital and the way the government then handled it.
There is a virtual absence of safe conditions of work for young doctors across the country, particularly in public hospitals. Most of the young doctors have to put in somewhere
36 hours. Stretch.
We find that there are no duty rooms available, separate restrooms or duty rooms available for men and women doctors, for the other nursing staff, for the paramedical staff who are also on duty. And therefore, we must evolve a national consensus to ensure that there must be a standard national protocol to ensure that safe conditions of work are provided. When is the body handed over to the parents for cremation?
Well, kindly have this note that I've given.
What time is the body handed over to the parents for cremation? 1 second.
Around 3:30.
10.
No. Therefore, one thing is very clear. The body is handed over to the parents for cremation at 8:30 p.m. The FIR is registered at 11:45 p.m. 3 hours and 15 minutes after the body is handed over to the parents for cremation.
Well, they refuse to file. Well, this is the problem. We handed it over. They filed the FIR. They made the complaint at 11:45. They say, we are in shock. Please do whatever you want to do. They wanted a post-mortem. We did the post-mortem. All is videographed. Everything is videographed.
The autopsy and the post-mortem take place.
Between 1:45 to 4 p.m.
Now, between 1:45 and 4 p.m.,
Yeah.
the autopsy takes place, followed by the
My lord,
post-mortem.
the autopsy took place at 6 o'clock, not at.
Fair enough. That's all right. We'll take it as between 1 and 4 o'clock. It doesn't take place in 1 minute. It takes
That was when.
Videograph.
1 second. Don't keep on interrupting.
They want a board. We constituted a board.
We are proceeding on the basis of Mr. Sibal's hypothesis that the autopsy and the post-mortem take place between 1 and 45 in the afternoon. Now,
Lordship, there is-
notwithstanding this, the autopsy would reveal that this is a case where a doctor has been murdered, where she has been murdered.
Yeah.
The FIR is registered at 11:45 in the night, Mr. Sibal.
Yeah.
And who was expected to?
Yeah.
Nobody in the hospital registers the FIR.
No.
The father registers the. What was the principal or the vice principal? What were the authorities of the hospital doing? What was the principal doing? Why did he not? One, why was this kind of inaction on the part first an attempt to pass this off as a suicide instead of a murder?
I'm sorry, Mother, that's not correct.
Not registering an FIR till late in the evening. Third, the body itself is handed over to the parents sometime in the evening for cremation. Fourth, and that's a matter of very serious concern. On the next day, the doctors, because they were all doctors working with her, the doctors are on protest. A group of persons, a mob assembles at the hospital. The hospital is invaded and the critical facilities are damaged in the morning or whenever the mob enters. What was the police doing?
Yes. Mother, we have videos for all. Mother, let me first of all state.
Surely, Mr. Sivan,
What?
the police,
Mother,
a very serious offense has taken place. The crime scene is within the precincts of the hospital. Now, that is the first thing that the police have to do, namely to protect the crime scene. What are they doing?
that's
They allow vandals to enter the hospital.
It's impossible that 7,000 people
first
can
of all,
gather without
of all,
the consent.
Please, 1 second.
allow me. This is-
7,000 people can gather without knowledge or consent of the.
This is not an adversarial
It's
litigation.
not. Therefore, let us not be in denial mode. One girl has lost life
1 second.
by not only a sexual pervert, he is an animal.
Now, there is some degree of assurance that is coming in from the Supreme Court for the doctors. But will this assurance from the Supreme Court assuage the concerns of the doctors enough for them to end their strike? Now, apparently not, because the strike continues with the doctors insistent on a central law to guarantee their safety. So for now, despite what the Supreme Court has said and done, the deadlock continues. My guests this evening, and I thank all of them for joining us. Nilanjan Das is spokesperson of the DMC, has a tough job this evening defending his government. Sanjay Hegde is a senior advocate joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Kunal Sarkar is a senior cardiac surgeon, someone who was part of the protests, was one of the few doctors who had got a notice from the Calcutta police. He had been summoned by them as well. We'll wait for Dr. Sarkar's to become a little stable, and then we'll put him on air and take him on air. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai is chairperson of the Nephron Clinic, joining us on the broadcast, and Dr. Rohan Krishnan is a chairperson of the Doctors Association. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Dr. Krishnan, I think my first question should be to you. The Supreme Court today has formed a task force. They're saying we are taking matters in our own hands. Enough is enough. We can't wait for another rape and murder to happen for things to improve. So we are setting up a task force of prominent doctors from across this country who will suggest to us how to make hospitals safe for medical staff. The Supreme Court has essentially assured all of you. The Supreme Court has also made an appeal to all of you to come back to work. My question to you is, why are you not doing that? Why are you not coming back to work?
See, I think that the decision of the Supreme Court is very welcoming. Firstly, that Supreme Court took suo motu cognizance of the issue, and secondly, I was there in the entire hearing process and via the online mode. and we saw that the Supreme Court was very sympathetic towards the conditions of the doctor. But the problem remains the same. A committee is always being formed. We talk about it, we speak about it, we ask for suggestions, and nothing happens on ground. The reality is that suppose if I tell you that XYZ house is haunted, you will not prefer to live in there. What is happening to doctors is that our work in hospitals, our working culture, working environment, our safety and security, everything is under question mark. But still we have to go there, work there. So right now all the resident doctors of the country are saying that when there is no security, there will be no duty. Everybody, RG Hospital is not a small hospital. It is one of the topmost medical colleges of the country and basically the top in the West Bengal. If the situation there is like this, that a doctor who's doing a 24-hour emergency duty, who must have saved lives on that night where her life was not being saved by the state government, it is very shameful to us. It is one of the most tragic incidents that the youngsters of the country have gone through. And we have shown that the backbone of the healthcare system of this country are the resident doctors.
Dr. Krishna, please answer my question. I understand your anger and angst. We all feel that anger and angst, also a sense of frustration that nothing seems to change in this country. But Dr. Krishna, my question to you is simple. Are you telling me that you don't have faith even in the Supreme Court of India? You're saying committee banti rehti hai, lekin inka hota kya hame pata nahi. Because everything gets forgotten exactly 3 days later. That is exactly what happened with Nirbhaya's case also. Is that what you're telling me?
We have
what will it take for you to come back to work then?
We have full an ordinance for the Central Protection Act for healthcare workers, which was passed during the COVID areas. That is the only thing which we are asking. It takes 24 hours to pass an ordinance, and it has been done priorly when the COVID time was there. So when you needed doctors, when the government needed doctors, when the public needed doctors, this could have been done. Then when the doctors are asking it from past 3-4 years, then I think that it should be done right now as well. It is not about faith in Supreme Court of India. We have full faith in the Supreme Court of India, but there is a system that where any act, any ordinance has to pass by the government, not by the Supreme Court. So for that, why not the ministry is taking any initiative? In our demand to ministry, we said that at least health ministry writes to the home ministry that these are the demands of the doctor and home ministry should consider bringing that ordinance. Even if that is not possible, then why we cannot clap hands from one hand. No, we also want to go back to duty, but it seems that there is laxity on the part of government that has to be done. We cannot just force our residents to go.
Okay, Dr. Bagai, from every quarter there are requests for the doctors to go back to work. Look, I don't think anyone should pressurize them to go back to work because their demands are legitimate. But getting in an ordinance, will that really help matters? The government has to do it. The Supreme Court cannot do it.
Good evening,
because,
good evening.
A law already exists. That law, good evening, sir. That law came into being during COVID times. Has that prevented doctors from being beaten up and stoned and raped and murdered? No.
Okay, so I think
another legislation help?
Yeah. So I think what has happened today is a huge step forward. And the reason I'm saying this is that this is a suo motu cognizance which the Supreme Court has taken through the Chief Justice himself. It was more than a 90-minute hearing. He's penned down a great deal of detailed articulated order. It's a meticulously thought out order. He has perhaps touched on most of the core areas. So let me just break it down into 4 very quick parts. One is the working conditions of the doctors. Second is the living conditions of the doctors in terms of restrooms and sleeping rooms and duty rooms and things. Third is the safety protocols and precaution measures. And last is the law. Now, he has touched on all these aspects. And in the last aspect, with regards to the implementation of the issues, he's initiated a 10-member team, and with ex officio, the highest ranked ministerial posts of cabinet secretary, home secretary, and the health secretary. These are the finest brains in India. They are all doctors. They've led large hospitals of magnitude of sizes. I think we should allow them time. They've been given 3 weeks and then a final report in 2 months' time. Now, coming to the resident doctors, I think we need to trust our courts.
Nahin,
I think the
Dr.
point which we
Bagai,
needed to
but
make, we have
Dr.
made
Bagai,
it
what
very
does
clear.
that mean? Does that mean for the next 3 weeks, Dr. Bagai, give me a minute here. Does that mean for the next 3 weeks, resident doctors will not go back to work? I
No,
mean,
I'm
I
not saying
understand
that.
the anger and the frustration,
I'm
but
not
there are
saying that.
also patients to be thought about, no?
Just let me complete. What I'm saying is that we must now trust the court. The court has stepped in. This is the highest judiciary of the country. We must respect what the court has said, and we must respect our fellow colleagues, that 10 of the finest minds in India who sat together. Now, even if the process has started, it's going to take many months for this to be completed. The resident doctors should now get back to work. There should be implementation of strict protocols with regards to access, CCTV cameras, security guards, female security guards, and so on. But I feel the point we needed to have made as a medical community has been made. The conscience of the country has been awakened. The resident doctors should resume work. It should not be to allow the patients to suffer. Our aim is never that, but get back to work now. That's our karma.
Okay.
That is our duty. Yes, we have to take precautions. Hospitals should be asked to initiate the necessary protocols to be put in place. But the residents now, with the Supreme Court coming in, with the National Task Force being formulated, should get back to work.
Okay, even I think they should get back to work. 12 days of protest, they have made their point. The Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance. A task force of India's top 10 doctors have been put in place to ensure that all doctors, nurses, medical staff are safe in their hospitals. A CBI inquiry has been initiated. Beyond this, honestly, there is nothing that the courts can do. The courts have done what they could do. They've heard the doctors out. Is it time for doctors to go back? That is something that the doctors themselves will have to decide. But I think the wisdom that is coming out, even from the medical fraternity, is point made, get back to work, patients are dying. Sanjay Hegde, the doctors will decide what they want to do next. I want to ask you, where does the West Bengal government go from here on? The fact is that today, the Supreme Court has asked it every tough question that citizens of India have been asking them for the last 12 days. And to my mind, and I saw the proceedings, it seems that the West Bengal government didn't have answers to basic questions. Like, if a body is discovered of your own student at 9 a.m. in the morning, you are filing an FIR at 11:45 p.m.? This is your own student, raped and murdered within your own premises. You file an FIR after the entire day is gone. Why will we not believe that there was a cover-up?
Well, there is no doubt that there has been a great amount of mishandling and miscommunication on the part of the authorities at RGKar in the first instance, and then whatever the local politicians who came out in support of the principle. But the Supreme Court has asked the pertinent questions. In the meanwhile, the investigation has been transferred to the CBI. And as you yourself have said, most of the things that can and ought to have been done have now been done. As far as the West Bengal government is concerned, this is an incident which has shaken at least the city of Calcutta, if not the state. What it does politically, it is for the government to consider. See, I was there at the Nirbhaya protests in Jantar Mantar when I saw Mrs. Sheila Dikshit come there personally, light a candle, despite all the voting and everything. And then a couple of years later, when the elections came, nothing could really save the Congress in Delhi at that point of time. What the political response is, how it is digested by the people of that state, those are questions in the future. Right now, what the court is concerned with is an honest and speedy investigation, systemic steps to ensure that there are no repeats. Thirdly, as Dr. Bagai pointed out, how do you make the working conditions of doctors safer? There are two aspects of it. One is, of course, the sexual aspect of it, which the women doctors and the women health workers face. There is also the a question of violence against doctors in general. Whenever a patient dies or something happens, the relatives of the patients often beat up doctors. So in respect of that, there is a comprehensive law which came into force during COVID, but which need not be COVID specific anymore. It needs to be widened. What is the response of the younger doctors, the residents who are now on strike? Because the entire system depends on the hard labor put in by the youngest of doctors. I have, my brother is a
Correct.
doctor. I've seen how the system operates, and they are the foot soldiers. They need to be assured. They have possibly gone beyond the stage of saying believing people who say trust me. But at the end of the day, the highest court has intervened, has passed directions which will come into play and will be effective soon. I do not think that there is a point in continuing the agitation beyond a certain period. Yes, there has to be some time for grieving. There has to be some time for everything to be expressed. But at the end of the day, they are as much part of the system and they will in turn go on to lead the system. They have a very huge responsibility.
Nilanjan Das. Okay. Let me get in the TMC spokesperson here. Nilanjan Das, Sanjay Hegde spoke about trust. The fact is that no one trusts the West Bengal government right now. The Calcutta High Court doesn't, the resident doctors don't, senior doctors don't, and now the Supreme Court doesn't either. What the Supreme Court has said and done today, Nilanjan Das, do you think it comes as an embarrassment to you and your party?
Shreya, good evening. Like the rest of India, like the rest of Kolkata and West Bengal, I'm deeply pained by what has happened. We are shocked to the core. And whatever oral observations that have come in from the Supreme Court today are also affected by the fake news that is going on in the social media. None of us are immune to that. That is what I can feel from some of the statements from the Supreme Court, with all due respect to them. For example,
give me an example.
I'm giving you an example. The FIR was lodged officially at 2:45 p.m. on the 9th of August. The principal, the then principal of the college, he telephonically informed it to the Tala police station at 10:03 a.m. And you have to understand that every medical college of West Bengal has got a police outpost. They were already there. The CP had come to the place by 1:30. So, and according to the new BNS law that has been passed by the Modi government, it doesn't require you a formal FIR for the police to start its action. The police was already there. The investigating authorities were already there. Actions had started to take place. So I don't understand why this has been blown out of proportion, that an FIR was officially lodged.
So Nilanjan Das, what are you telling me? Nilanjan Das, what are you telling me? Are you telling me that the Supreme Court has fallen victim to fake news? Because the Supreme Court, I could see the Chief Justice of India read out of a paper.
The Chief Justice was asking
and someone has given him that information. I'm sure the Chief Justice of India has not got this information from social media.
I don't know. Many of the reports are wrong. For example, the CPIM MP who appeared as a counsel in the High Court, he first put out a statement that 150 grams of semen has been discovered. Then he himself withdrew that claim. So you can understand that the situation is very grim, and there are vested interests who are propagating fake news through various means, like voice clips. Voice clips in Bengali, they are being spread over WhatsApp. And people are falling prey to this fake propaganda.
No. Including the Supreme Court, according to... I'll let the lawyer on the panel respond to that. But as far as the autopsy report that you're quoting is concerned, no, as far as you quoting the autopsy report is concerned about this entire 151 grams of semen found or not found, which will determine whether this was a rape or a gang rape, point is, People are saying what they want to say because you have not made the autopsy report public. So
autopsy
journalists are
report
speaking
cannot
to
be
their
made
own
public.
sources. Their sources are
you
telling them
have
different
learned
things and they're
doctors
putting it
here.
out.
I'm
Make the
sorry,
autopsy
madam.
report
I'm
public.
sorry, autopsy report is a
We will
confidential
know.
report. It should be there only with the law enforcing authorities and the doctors who have conducted it. What are you saying? It cannot be a
So
public
let law enforcement authorities come forward. Let
Yeah,
Mamata
they have
Banerjee
done
come
it.
forward and say
They
this
have
is
done it.
fake news.
It is some of-
151 grams of semen has not been found. This
has
is
not been
not a
found.
case of gang rape. This is a case of rape. Let the Chief Minister of the state come and say this at a press conference.
No, it's
We
not
will
for
not
the Chief
disbelieve her,
Minister.
but let her come and say
No,
it. Na?
I'm sorry, Shreya. Shreya, I'm sorry.
Then
The
for
case is now under the
no,
CBI.
a
You
young
must ask,
31-year-old
why are you not
doctor
asking
is
what the CBI has
raped,
done for the
is
last 1
raped.
week? The CBI must come clean. And you must wait for the CBI's report that they are due to file on Thursday.
Not the West Bengal,
What have they
not the West
done?
Bengal police, not the West Bengal administration. The CBI should come clean.
The case has been
They who have
transferred
started
to the
investigations
CBI.
only a
Honorable
week
Chief
ago.
Minister, Shreya, if you would
Sanjay
allow me to
Hegde,
finish,
but
the Honorable
Nilanjan
Chief
makes an
Minister
interesting
had
point.
said- The Honorable Chief Minister had said that we will transfer the case to the CBI after Sunday if we cannot make any head through. But the Honorable High Court of Calcutta had transferred it
You have
to the
made an
CBI.
interesting point. I need to get Sanjay Hegde in. Mr. Hegde, Nilanjan Das is making an interesting point. Now, if he's making these points on national television, I'm sure he has it on good authority, where he's saying that it seems that the Supreme Court has fallen to fake news
Well,
and
that
has
was
made pronouncements in the court based on fake news.
well, that was also the attempt of the West Bengal lawyers. The Supreme Court has taken into account a lot of things. Right now, it's an interim order, so it has not come to a final conclusion. Your point on those 115 grams, that yes, there is a misreading by a lot of people. It refers, the 115 grams refers to the weight of the concerned organ. Because all other organs also, the weights are set out in that postmortem report. Somebody has mistaken in that particular column, and that has become a viral thing that there were 115 grams of seminal fluid there, which means that there was more than one person, etc., etc., etc. There have been attempts to try and bring down to inform the public, but it is also obvious that there have been attempts at disinformation. So the public really does not know what to believe. It may well have been that if there had been an authorized spokesperson who was briefing the press in an open press conference, taking questions, a lot of this information could have been sorted out. That has not happened.
The solution was right in front of you, Nilanjan Das, as when it comes to fake news. The TMC government chose not to exercise it. It's as simple as that. If there is misinformation, and sure there is misinformation that is being spread, well, you are to blame as well. We leave it there for the moment. The big question is, will the doctors now end their strike? Given the Supreme Court's intervention, the doctors will decide, but I think 12 days of protest, they've made the point. The Supreme Court has stepped in to assure them of their safety. Why stretch this protest any longer? Of course, our viewers can decide on their own. They've heard from all sides. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. It was good to have you on the show.